Hello friends, as part of my video lecture series, today I would like to explain one of the important chapters of Indian Penal Code 1860 which deals with offences against property. Chapter 17 of Indian Penal Code 1860 deals with offences against property. Here, in the previous video lectures, we have discussed the introductory provisions and basic structure, the general exceptions, and now in this video lecture we are going to know Chapter 17, which deals with the offences against the property. Here there are 11 offences against property which are described under sections 378 to 462. Chapter 17 of Indian Penal Code describes 11 offences against property. They are theft, extortion, robbery, dacoity, criminal misappropriation of property, criminal breach of trust, receiving stolen property, cheating, fraudulent deeds and disposition of property, mischief and criminal trespass. Here, the offences against property are categorized into 4 categories, namely offences against property where there is no damage to the property but there is an injury to right of peaceful enjoyment. Category 2 is offences against property where there is a clear damage to the property, where there is a damage to the property. Class 3 deals with receiving of stolen property. Category 4 deals with the fraudulent deeds and dispositions of property. Here there are certain offences under category 1 of offences against property. There are a wide variety of offences under category 2 of offences against property. There are some offences related to category 3 of offences against property. Next, the 4th category, fraudulent deeds and dispositions of property, has distinctive offences under chapter 17. Let us discuss the first category of offences against property where there is no damage to the property, but injury to the right of peaceful enjoyment. The lawful possessor of the property gets some injury to the right of peaceful enjoyment over such property, but there is no actual damage to the property. We need to understand this basic conceptualization. Here there is no actual damage to the property of a lawful possessor, but some acts of the accused or offender causes some injury to the right of peaceful enjoyment of the lawful possessor of such property. Here, the trespass, criminal trespass, and the aggravated forms of criminal trespass from sections 441 to 462 comes under the first category of offences against property. Let us discuss the concept of criminal trespass. Criminal trespass is a tort. A trespass is a tort, but not the criminal trespass. Trespass is a tort where a person enters on the property of another without any right or lawful authority or an express or implied invitation or license. Without a right, without a lawful authority, without an express or implied invitation or license, he enters into the property of another person. Whenever he enters into the property of another person, it is said to be trespass under law of torts. If the the intention of the trespasser is to commit an offense, to intimidate, to insult, or to annoy the person in lawful possession of such property, then it is said to be criminal trespass as under section 441. Here these are the ingredients. A trespass means entering into the property of another person without any right, without lawful authority, without an express or implied invitation or license, to commit an offense, or to intimidate, to insult, or to annoy the person in the lawful possession of such property. A trespass plus intention to commit an offense, to intimidate, to insult, to annoy the person in the lawful possession of such property is said to be criminal trespass as under section 441. Here, the next aggravated form of criminal trespass is house trespass. House trespass is defined under section 442. Here the related provisions related to house trespass are discussed under section 448 to 452. These are the provisions related to house trespass. Now, for every house trespass, there should be a criminal trespass. Criminal trespass by entering into or remaining in any building. Criminal trespass by entry in any building or tent or vessel which is used as human dwelling or a place of worship or a place used for custody of goods is said to be a house trespass. In order to constitute a house trespass, there should be a criminal trespass first. There should be a criminal trespass. Criminal trespass into a building, tent or vessel. Such building, tent or vessel should be used for human dwelling, or such building, tent or vessel should be used as a place of worship. Such building, tent or vessel should be used as a place for custody of goods. Then such kind of trespass is said to be house trespass. House trespass, that is the second kind of aggravated form of criminal trespass. The third one is lurking house trespass. Lurking house trespass means lurking house trespass. Lurking house trespass means a house trespass plus accused should take some active precautions, some precautionary measures to conceal his presence or his identity, from the person who has right to prevent that person from entry, or who has the right to exclude or eject the accused upon such entry. In lurking house trespass, there should be a house trespass. Then the person the accused person who is entering unlawfully into a house, that means a building, vessel or tent, or who remains there, who enters by lawful means but he remains there unlawfully. Sorry friends, I would like to say one more point here. In criminal trespass, there should be some entry of a person in the property of another person. Such entry should be through unlawful means, or his entry may be through lawful means but he should remain there unlawfully. His intention is to commit an offense, or to intimidate, or to insult, or to annoy the person who is in lawful possession of such property. Here in lurking house trespass, there should be a house trespass plus the person, the accused person who enters into the property of another person should take some precautionary measures. He should take some care to conceal his identity or to conceal his presence in such house, tent or vessel. He is said to be the lurking house trespass. Lurking house trespass. There are some more aggravated forms under house trespass and lurking house trespass. If any person commits the house trespass after sunset and before sunrise, it is said to be a house trespass at night. If a person who remains there even after sunset and before sunrise, it is said to be the lurking house trespass by night. Lurking house trespass by night. The next aggravated form is housebreaking. Section 445 of Indian Penal Code explains the concept of housebreaking. For housebreaking, there should be a house trespass. It is the first essential element. House trespass. The house trespass in any of the 6 ways described under section 445 is known as housebreaking. It's the most aggravated form when compared to the previous offences under category 1. House trespass through any of these 6 ways. In order to commit a house trespass, he must enter into the building, tent or vessel through a passage made by the accused himself or by his accomplice, by some co-accused. If the accused enters into the house through any passage not meant for human entrance, not through the wall, not through the door or fences. The third one, any passage opened by the accused himself or his abettor, removing some part in the roof, making some passage in the wall, etc. Opening any lock for entry into the house or to exit from the house. Opening any lock is also amounts to housebreaking. Using criminal force for entry into the house or to depart from the house. For his entry, if he uses some criminal force upon a person who has the right to possess such property lawfully, if he uses the criminal force against the lawful possession of the property in order to enter into such house or in order to exit or depart from the house, it is also said to be housebreaking as under section 445. The fourth way is by entering or quitting through any passage fastened against such entrance or exit. If any accused enters into a building, tent or vessel through any of these 6 ways, it is said to be housebreaking. If the housebreaking is committed by a person after sunset and before sunrise, it is said to be housebreaking by night. These are the offences come under the first category, that is offences against property, where there is no damage to the property. In criminal trespass, he enters into the property of another person unlawfully, or he enters into the property of another person lawfully, but he remains there unlawfully. But his intention, the intention of the accused, is to commit an offense or to intimidate, insult or annoy such person. Here the accused didn't cause any damage to the lawful possession of the property. In a house trespass, there is no damage to the building, vessel or tent. In lurking house trespass, the accused takes some precautions to conceal his presence or identity from the person who has right to eject him from his house. Here there is no damage. The accused didn't cause any damage to the property of the lawful possessor. In lurking house trespass by night, there is no damage to the property. In housebreaking, there is no damage, or there is some nominal damage to the property. In case of passage made by the accused or some other person, if he removes any passage fastened against such entrance or exit, or if he breaks the lock, in such cases just some nominal damage is caused, but it is not the entire damage, the entire destruction of the property. It is just a nominal damage to the property. Hence, there is no damage to the property, but it causes injury to right of peaceful enjoyment of the lawful possession of the property. Whenever a person enters into the property of another person, certainly it causes some injury to lawful right of the possession of the property, whether he may be the owner or tenant. It doesn't matter here. Such unlawful entry or lawful entry but remaining there unlawfully causes some injury to right of peaceful enjoyment, but it does not cause any damage to the property. Now friends, let us go for the second category, that is offences against property where the accused causes damage to the property. Here the accused causes damage to the property. Here it is again divided into certain subcategories in order to understand the distinct difference between different offences enumerated under offences against property. In order to understand the concept of mischief, we need to understand the concept that here the accused causes damage to the property of a particular person, but the accused gets nothing. The property is removed from a particular person, but the accused person who causes damage to the property of another person does not get anything, does not get such property. He causes damage to the property, but the accused does not get anything, any property. He causes damage to the property, but he is not taking away the property of another person. It is the important characteristic feature of mischief. The provisions related to mischief are explained from sections 425 to 440, 425 to 440. In order to constitute the offense of mischief, it should fulfill certain characteristic features. The characteristic features are: the accused must have the intention or knowledge to cause. The accused person must have some intention or knowledge to cause wrongful loss or damage to the public property or private property. The intention of the accused is to cause wrongful loss or damage to some property. The property may be a public property or private property. The accused must destruct the entire property, or he must change the state of the property. Such destruction or demolition should decrease the value or utility of such property. These are the ingredients of mischief. In order to understand the concept of mischief, we need to discuss few illustrations. Here, A has a ring. B, Mr. B voluntarily throws A's ring, Mr. A's ring, into a river with an intention to cause a wrongful loss to Mr. A. It amounts to mischief as under section 425 of IPC. Here B gets nothing, but he causes wrongful loss to Mr. A. A's ring was thrown into the river with an intention to cause wrongful loss to Mr. A. Here B is liable for mischief. He is liable for the offense of mischief. Let us go for the next illustration. Mr. P voluntarily burns a valuable security belongs to Q. Q's security, it is a document, important document, or it is a valuable security. Mr. Q's valuable security was burnt by Mr. P voluntarily with an intention to cause lawful loss to Mr. Q. Here P is liable for causing wrongful loss. He commits mischief. Next, let us go for the next illustration. Mr. X introduces some water into the ice house of Mr. Y. Mr. Y has an ice house. Mr. X introduces the water into the ice house of Mr. Y. Here, the act of Mr. X causes the ice to melt. Mr. X has intention to cause wrongful loss to Mr. Y. Hence, it is said to be X is committed mischief. He is liable for mischief. Coming to the next illustration, Mr. K and Mr. L are the joint owners of a car. They are the joint owners of a car. Mr. K destructs the car with an intention to cause wrongful loss to Mr. L. Here it is said to be K is liable under mischief. It is mischief. In mischief, there is a damage to the property of a particular person by another person. Here the another person is the accused. The accused gets nothing. The intention of the accused is to cause wrongful loss or damage to the property of another person, or to destroy or diminish the value or utility of a person. If Mr. A has some cotton, Mr. B introduces water into the cotton of Mr. B. Here, whenever some water is introduced into the cotton, then the value of the cotton will diminish. If the act of Mr. A is in order to cause some wrongful loss, his intention is to cause some wrongful loss to Mr. B, then it is said to be Mr. A has committed mischief. Here the subject matter under mischief is either the public property or private property. Friends, coming to next subcategory under damage to property, that is, here accused gets nothing. If accused gets nothing, it is said to be mischief. Here the accused dishonestly gets the property. Accused causes damage to the property. The owner of the property gets damaged. He loses his property. The property is removed from the owner of the property, from the lawful possessor of the property. The property is removed. But in mischief, the accused doesn't get anything. But in theft, extortion, robbery, dacoity, cheating, criminal misappropriation and criminal breach of trust, the accused dishonestly gets the property. That is the difference between mischief and the rest of the offences under the second category. The second category of offences against property. Here accused dishonestly gets the property. Accused dishonestly gets the property with pre-dishonest intention. Before obtaining such property, he has some dishonest intention in his mind to get such property from the lawful possessor of the property. The accused has dishonest intention in his mind in order to obtain such property from the lawful possessor. Such dishonest intention is originated in his mind before he is obtaining such property from lawful possessor. Before he is obtaining such property from lawful possessor, not after obtaining such property by lawful means from the lawful possessor or the owner of such property. Before obtaining such property, he has some dishonest intention. He has pre-dishonest intention. With such pre-dishonest intention, he dishonestly gets such property from the lawful possessor. It causes damage to the actual possessor of the property, the actual owner, or who has lawful authority over such property. Now, just now I said theft, extortion, robbery, dacoity, cheating, criminal misappropriation, criminal breach of trust. These are the offences come under accused dishonestly gets the property. It causes damage to the actual owner or the person in whose lawful custody the property is possessed. Now, let us discuss the first one under this subcategory, that is theft. Sections 378 to section 382, these provisions are related to theft. Here under theft, just now we discussed that the accused has pre-dishonest intention. With pre-dishonest intention, without the consent from the person in lawful authority over such property, without the consent from the owner of the property, without consent from the lawful possessor of such property, he gets the property. The accused gets the property. If an accused gets the property from the lawful possessor of the property without the consent, is said to be theft. It is said to be theft. But literally it is said to be theft. But section 378 describes the essential ingredients of theft as the subject matter of theft is movable property. The first essential ingredient is movable property. The subject matter is movable property. A person with the pre-dishonest intention without consent from the owner cannot dishonestly get the immovable property under theft. The subject matter under theft is only movable property but not immovable property. The subject matter under theft is only the movable property. Let us know what is the movable property. Here the Supreme Court and various high courts in various cases declared certain goods as movable properties. If we know, generally we know the difference between movable and immobile property. Movable property is the property which can be transferred from one place to another place without causing any damage, without diminishing its value, quality, quantity by the human effort. Where a person can move such movable property from one person to another, from one place to another place through human effort without causing any damage, without diminishing value, quality, purity, quantity, standard of such product is said to be movable property. It is general meaning of the movable property. Here the court in certain cases declared certain items as movable property. Salt is a movable property. Stones are also movable property. Clay is the movable property. Sand is a movable property. Tree is a movable property whenever it is severed from the earth. A tree is an immobile property except grass, standing timber and growing crops. A tree is an immobile property. Whenever it is severed from the earth, whenever it is cut and whenever it is removed from the earth, then it is said to be a movable property. A tree is a movable property. A cooking gas is the movable property. Water passing through a pipeline is the movable property. These are the subject of theft. Idols from temple Temples are the movable property. Paintings in the museums are the movable property. Animals are also movable property. A cat, dog, goat, camel, horse, they are the movable property. The human body, whether living or dead, is not subject of theft. Friends, we need to remember the human body is not a movable property. Whether it is a living human body, whether a living person is not a movable property, but a living animal, an animal is a movable property, but a living human being is not a movable property. The dead body is not treated as movable property, it is not subject of theft. Here, electricity. Electricity comes under the movable property. It is not a theft of movable property within section 378 of IPC. However, it is treated as movable property, and theft of electricity is punishable under section 135, under section 135 of the Electricity Act 2003. Theft of electricity is not punishable under sections of IPC. It is punishable under section 135 of the Electricity Act 2003. Next, just now, friends, I said that the human body, whether living or dead, is not a subject of theft. But there is an exception. A mummified or dead bodies preserved in scientific institutions or medical colleges is a subject of theft. It is treated as movable property. This is an exception. A mummified dead body, a mummified body or dead body, a body which is preserved with certain chemicals for scientific use, for using such mummified body or dead body for demonstration in medical colleges, is treated as movable property. It is subject of theft under IPC. This is an exception. This is the first ingredient. Coming to the second ingredient, out of possession of any person. When the property is in the possession of a person's, when a property is in the possession of a particular person, is taken away by the accused, it is said to be a theft if it fulfills the rest of all ingredients. There must be a mobile property. Such mobile property must be taken away by the accused from the lawful possessor of such property with a dishonest intention, without the consent. There must be some movement of such property. These are the ingredients of theft. Here, out of the possession of any person. Here, any person includes when the property is in the possession of a person's wife or clerk or servant. On account of that person, it is that person's possession within the meaning of IPC under section 27. Whenever a person is said to be in the possession of certain person, if such property is in the possession of such person's wife or such person's clerk or such person's servant, it is treated as such property is in the possession of such person. For example, a property, a mobile phone belongs to Mr. X. Mobile phone belongs to Mr. X. It is in the possession of Mr. X's wife. Then it is presumed to be, the mobile phone is in the possession of Mr. X. If the mobile phone is in the possession of Mr. X's clerk, it is also presumed to be in the possession of Mr. X. If such mobile is in the possession of servant of Mr. X, it is also presumed to be it is in the possession of Mr. X, as under section 27 of IPC. Out of possession of any person is the second ingredient. The immovable property with dishonest intention without the consent of such person should be taken away by the accused. Now we discussed the second ingredient. Coming to the third ingredient, dishonest intention. The dishonest intention must exist at the time of the moving of the property. When a person takes another man's property, believing under mistake of fact, or ignorance of law, or mistake of law, then he is not guilty of theft, because there is no dishonest intention in his mind. There is no dishonest intention in his heart. Even though he may cause some wrongful injury to such person. One more exception is for this ingredient, without consent. If any other person has the right to take it, here Mr. A and Mr. B are the joint owners of a horse. Mr. B, without consent from Mr. A, takes away the horse for riding. B is not guilty of theft. Why? Because Mr. B has right to take it. Hence, it is not said to be theft. Even though there is no consent, even though B didn't get any consent from Mr. A, the next ingredient is moves that property. Here without consent, the consent may be implied consent or the express consent. Consent may be implied or express. There will be no theft where there is a consent or authorization. If a person gives authorization or consent, then it is not said to be a theft. If a person takes the property of another with the authorization or consent from the actual possessor of the property, from the actual owner or who has lawful authority over such property, it is not said to be a theft. Whenever a person takes away such property without any express or implied consent, then it is said to be a theft. Let us discuss few more illustrations. Mr. S, being on friendly terms with Mr. T, goes into S's library in absence of Mr. S and takes away some books without the consent of Mr. S for the purpose of merely reading such books with intention of returning the same books. Here Mr. T is not liable for theft. Let us see one more illustration with regard to consent, the concept of consent. Mr. V pawned his watch to Mr. U. Not having paid that he borrowed on the watch, Mr. V takes it out of Mr. U's possession without the consent of Mr. U. Mr. V pawns his watch with Mr. U. Without U's consent, he takes away the watch. Mr. V takes away the watch from the possession of Mr. U. Without paying the money for the repairs, he is also liable for theft. He is liable for theft. Next, the moves that property. Offense of theft is completed when there is dishonest moving of the property. Dishonest moving of the property is the essential element that completes the offense of theft. There must be moving of property with an intention to take it. If there is no intention, then it is not said to be the theft. It is not treated as theft. Intention to take it away from the lawful possessor of the property. Let us see few illustrations. Mr. P sees a mobile phone belonging to Mr. K on the table in K's house. Mr. P hides the phone in the place where it will ever be found by Mr. K with the intention of taking it from the hiding place when the loss is forgotten by Mr. K. Here Mr. P is committed the offense of theft. He moves the property, but the property is still in the house of Mr. K. Mr. P moves the property from the table of Mr. K, then he keeps such property in a place where it cannot be easily found by Mr. K. In absence of Mr. K, the intention of Mr. P is to take it away whenever Mr. K forgotten about the loss of such property. Here Mr. P has intention to take such property. The intention is the dishonest intention. He is moving the property without consent of Mr. K. He is taking away the property. All these ingredients are fulfilled. Hence, it is said to be theft. Mr. R meets a lorry carrying a box of jewelry. He drives the lorry in a certain direction in order that he may dishonestly take the jewelry. As soon as the lorry begins to move, Mr. R has committed the theft of jewelry. He is not actually taking away the jewelry, but he is moving the lorry in a certain direction in order to take it away, in order to take the jewelry. He has dishonest intention. He moved the lorry in certain direction. It amounts to theft. Friends, just read all illustrations under theft. The most important illustrations the most confusing illustrations. Once you understand all these ingredients, once you study all illustrations under theft, then you can easily understand the concept of theft. You can easily distinguish the concept of theft from all other offences which are enumerated under offences against property or chapter 17 of IPC. Next, extortion. Here, the person has pre-dishonest intention. Without consent of the owner, he is obtaining the property dishonestly. It amounts to theft. Just now we discussed. Now, the person has pre-dishonest intention. The accused has pre-dishonest intention. He gets the property, but with the consent of the owner or the lawful possessor of the property, he takes away the property. The accused takes away the property with pre-dishonest intention from the lawful possessor of the property with consent from such lawful possessor. Here the consent obtained by the accused from the lawful possessor is by means of fear. The accused uses fear in order to obtain the property from the owner of such property, from the person who has lawful authority over such property. The accused with pre-dishonest intention takes away the property with the consent of the owner of such property by means of fear. He threatens the person through the fear of threat. He gets the consent from the party. Through the consent under fear, he takes away the property with pre-dishonest intention. Here the with consent by fear, we know that these are the two ingredients. With consent by fear, the consent is obtained by fear, but the fear is not the instant fear. The fear is not the instant fear. It is not the instant fear. If the fear is instant, then it is said to be the another kind of offense under category 2. Here, with consent, but the consent is obtained by means of fear. But the fear is not the instant one. A person, that is the accused, puts the another person in the fear of injury to body, mind, reputation or property of another person, or the person who has interest with such person. The accused puts a person in the fear of injury to the body of the another person, the mind of another person, the reputation of another person, the property of another person, the body, mind, reputation or property of any person who has some interest of such person. The accused puts a person in the fear of injury is the first ingredient. The accused puts the son of a person in the fear of injury in body, mind, reputation or property of a person's son. Here a person's son is the interested property to such victim. Victim is the person whose property is removed by the accused. The accused puts a particular person, that is the victim, a person, the accused puts the victim in the fear of injury to his body, to his mind, to reputation, to his property, or to he puts the relatives, friends, or any other person who has interest with the victim. The accused puts the victim's relatives, friends, or any other person who has interest with the victim in the fear of injury in body, mind, reputation, or property. It is the first ingredient. The second ingredient is the accused must have dishonest intention. The accused must have the dishonest intention. It is already decided. The purpose of the accused is to induce the delivery of any property or valuable security. Any property or valuable security. The accused puts a person in fear of injury with dishonest intention to induce delivery of any property, whether that is movable or immovable, or any valuable security related to immobile, or any valuable security related to money, or any shares, debentures, etc. Here the subject matter is not the movable property. The subject matter is any kind of property or any kind of valuable security. It distinguishes. The extortion distinguishes rest of the offences against property because of these distinctive characteristic features. Now let us see few illustrations in order to understand the concept of extortion in better way. Mr. V threatens to publish a defamatory libel concerning Mr. A unless Mr. A gives him some money. He, that is Mr. V, induces Mr. A to give him money. Mr. V threatens to publish a libel, a defamatory libel concerning Mr. A in order to get some money with dishonest intention. Here Mr. V is putting Mr. A in the fear of injury to the reputation of Mr. A. Yes, hence it fulfilled the first ingredient. He has dishonest intention. With the dishonest intention, he induced Mr. A to deliver certain money. Here any property or valuable security includes the money. Let us see the next illustration. Mr. K threatens Mr. L that he will keep Mr. L's child in wrongful confinement unless Mr. L will sign and deliver to Mr. A promissory note binding Mr. A to pay certain monies to Mr. K. Sorry, I used different names for the persons. Sorry. Mr. K threatens Mr. A that he will keep Mr. A's child in wrongful confinement unless Mr. A will sign and deliver to Mr. K a promissory note binding Mr. A to pay certain monies to Mr. K. Thereupon, Mr. A signs and delivers the promissory note to Mr. K. Here, Mr. K is said to be committed extortion. In this illustration, Mr. K putting Mr. A in the fear of injury to Mr. A's child. Here Mr. A's child is the relative, family member or friend or the person in interest to Mr. A. In first illustration, the accused puts the victim in the fear of injury. But in the second illustration, the accused puts the fear of injury to the victim's child, not the victim directly, to the victim's child. Such fear is not the instant fear. Such fear is not the instant one. He has dishonest intention to obtain the promissory note. Here, thereupon, Mr. K delivered the promissory note in favor of Mr. A. Here, all these ingredients are fulfilled. It is extortion under IPC 1860. Friends, the next one next one is the robbery. Here, damage to the property, accused dishonestly gets the property. His intention is pre-dishonest intention. Before obtaining the product, he has some dishonest intention in order to obtain such property. Here, if he gets such property without consent, it is known as theft. With consent, he gets the property, but he gets such consent by means of fear, but the fear is not the instant one, then it is known as extortion. Now the accused dishonestly gets the property with pre-dishonest intention with the consent of the victim, but the victim gives the consent because of the fear. The fear is the instant one. If the fear is the instant one, it is either a robbery or a dacoity. If the fear is the instant one, if the fear is the instant fear, then it may be either robbery or dacoity. Let us see the differences. The robbery and dacoity are not the separate offences. These were the aggravated forms of the theft or extortion. The robbery or dacoity or the aggravated forms of theft or extortion. Let us see the ingredients of robbery and dacoity. Sections 390 to 402 deal with the offences of robbery and dacoity. Here, a theft becomes a robbery. An extortion can also becomes a robbery. Let us see the ingredients when a theft becomes robbery. There must be a theft. There must be a theft. Here, the accused voluntarily causes death, hurt, or wrongful restraint. Death, hurt, or wrongful restraint to the victim, or the accused causes theft. Along with the offense of theft, he must cause the fear of instant death, fear of instant death, fear of instant hurt, fear of instant wrongful restraint. Then it is also said to be robbery. But these voluntarily threat or fear of instant threat should be before or at the time of committing of the theft. The accused must use these violence or fear of instant violence at just before committing of the theft, or at the time of committing of the theft, then it is said to be the robbery. Simply, robbery means a theft plus violence of death, hurt or wrongful restraint, or fear of instant death, hurt or wrongful restraint. These death, that is creating fear or creating instant fear related to death, hurt or wrongful restraint, should be used by the accused just before committing of the theft or at the time of committing of the theft. These are the ingredients. Whenever these ingredients are fulfilled, then the theft becomes robbery. Next, extortion. An extortion becomes robbery whenever it fulfills these conditions. The accused must commit an extortion. The extortion must be committed by the accused in presence of the accused. Here the accused must present, he must come forward to the victim. He must put the fear of instant death, hurt or wrongful restraint. Because of such fear of instant death, hurt or wrongful restraint, the victim immediately delivers the property or valuable security to the accused. Here, there is no instant fear in extortion. If there is instant fear, if there is immediate delivery, then such extortion is said to be robbery. Simply, extortion plus immediate delivery of property or valuable security with fear of instant death, hurt or wrongful restraint in presence of the offender is said to be robbery. Friends, the next one is dacoity. Dacoity is the most aggravated form. Under this subcategory, accused dishonestly gets the property. Whenever a robbery is committed by 5 or more than 5 persons, it is said to be dacoity. These are the offences comes under accused dishonestly gets the property. Under this subsection, accused gets nothing. There is only one offence, that is mischief. Under accused dishonestly gets the property with pre-dishonest intention. There are 1, 2, 3, 4. Up to now, there are 4 offences. Criminal trespass 1, criminal trespass, mischief 2, extortion 3, theft 4, robbery 5, dacoity 6. Up to now, we have discussed 6 offences. Next, let us see the 7th one. Here, accused dishonestly gets the property. His intention is pre-dishonest intention. With the consent of the owner, the accused gets the property. Here, the consent is obtained by the accused, not by fear. Not by fear. The accused gets the consent from the owner by means of fraud. By means of fraud. Here the words fraudulent are used along with the words dishonest. Whenever a person dishonestly gets the property with pre-dishonest intention with the consent of the owner, but such consent is obtained by fraud, it is said to be cheating. Let us see the full ingredients of offense of cheating. Sections 415 to 420 are related to offense of cheating. Let us see the ingredients. There must be some deception. The accused must deceive the victim. Through that deception, the accused fraudulently and dishonestly induces the victim to deliver any property or give the consent to retain any property. Here, there must be some deception with deceitful means, with fraud. Here the word deception and fraudulent are related to the word fraud. With the deceitful means, with fraudulent and dishonest inducement, the accused induces the victim in order to deliver the victim's property to the accused or any other person proposed by the accused, or deceiving or deceiving the victim by the accused through fraudulent and dishonest inducement in order to give the consent to retain the property of the victim by the accused himself or by any person suggested by the accused is said to be cheating. Or the second part of section 415 defines cheating in another way. There must be some deception, there must be some fraudulent and dishonest inducement by the accused to the victim. Through that fraudulent and dishonest inducement and deceitful means, the accused the victim omits something. Because of the omission, certain damage or harm is caused to the body of the victim, to the mind of the victim, to the reputation of the victim, or to the property of the victim. It is the second part. Here, the commission or omission, inducing to commit something, accused induces through fraudulent means or deceitful means. He induces the victim to deliver certain property to the accused to the accused or to any person suggested by the accused, or getting consent through these fraudulent and deceitful means in order to get the consent to retain such property by the accused himself or by any person suggested by the accused, or using deceitful means or fraudulent dishonest inducement in order to omit certain thing. Because of such omission by the victim, it causes certain damage or harm to the body, mind, reputation, or property of the victim. It is said to be cheating. The provisions related to cheating are described under section 415 to 420. Next, friends, up to now we discussed criminal trespass, mischief 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Up to now we discussed 7 kinds of against property. Let us discuss the next one. Before going to discuss the next one, let us see the differences among theft, extortion, robbery and dacoity. Section 378 defined offense of theft. 383 defines extortion. 390 defines robbery. 391 defines dacoity. The subject matter of theft is only the movable property. The subject matter of extortion is either movable or immovable. Here the word valuable security is used along with any property or valuable security. These two terms are used in case of extortion. Next, in robbery, it may be the movable or immovable. If the theft becomes robbery, the subject matter is movable. If the extortion becomes robbery, the subject matter may be the movable or immovable. The dacoity, whenever a robbery is committed by 5 or more members, it becomes dacoity. Hence, the subject matter may be movable or immovable property. Here, the third basis is consent. The property is obtained by the accused without the consent of the owner of such property. Under extortion, the owner gives the consent, but the consent is obtained by means of fear. But the fear is not the instant one. Here, there is the consent, but the consent is the instant fear. The consent is obtained from the party because of the instant fear. Here also the instant fear. Next, minimum number of accused in case of theft. At least one person is required for theft. For extortion, at least one person is required. For robbery, at least one. For dacoity, at least five. At least five. Minimum number of persons is 5. Next, the element of force in theft. No force is used. Without the consent, the person takes away the movable property of another person with a dishonest intention. In extortion, the element of force is used, but such force is not the instant one. In robbery, the force is used. In dacoity, the force may be used. is used. Coming to the attempts, the attempt of theft is enumerated under section 511. It is far away from section 378. Friends, we need to remember this section. The attempt of theft is punishable under which section? It is punishable under section 511. Here, the attempts of extortion are punishable under section 385, 87, 89. Attempt of theft, robbery. Attempts of robbery are punishable under sections 393, 98. The attempt of dacoity is also punishable under section 389. Here, preparation for theft is not punishable. Preparation for extortion is not punishable. Preparation for robbery is not punishable. But the preparation for dacoity is punishable under section 399. Even the assembling for preparation of dacoity is also punishable under section 402 of IPC. Here, the right of private defense is available in case of theft. Here, in case of extortion, the right of private defense is not available. Why? Because there is no instant fear under extortion. I will see your end unless you deliver your product to Mr. X. These are the threatening statements given by Mr. A. Here there is no instant fear. I will see your end unless you deliver your property to Mr. X. Here there is no, under this illustration, there is no instant fear. Be careful about your child. I will see the end of your child if you disobey my if you disobey if you disobey my direction to transfer certain property to me, it is also an extortion. Yet there is no instant fear, there is some fear in future. He threatens a person. In that threat, here the threat is the future one. The threat may be committed by the accused in future, but he creates some fear in the mind of the victim, but this fear is not the instant fear. Hence, no right of private defense is available. If there is instant fear, then the right of private defense is available. In extortion, there is no instant fear, hence the right of private defense is not available. In robbery and dacoity, the right of private defense is available. The punishments for theft are available under section 379 to 382. Here, these are the sections which describe the punishments for extortion, robbery and dacoity. Friends, the next one under this category is there is some damage to the property. Accused dishonestly gets the property, but the accused has post dishonest intention. The accused, after obtaining the property, some dishonest intention will be stimulated in his mind after obtaining some property. Certain dishonest intention is created in his mind. Because of that post dishonest intention, he commits certain offences. These offences are criminal misappropriation and criminal breach of trust. A person gives the possession of certain property. After getting such property to my possession, my mind stimulates certain dishonest intention in my mind. Due to that post dishonest intention, after obtaining the product, I get some dishonest intention. It is known as post dishonest intention. Due to this post dishonest intention, I takes away the product of another person. Friends, these are the two offences, criminal misappropriation and criminal breach of trust. These two come under this subsection, that is post dishonest intention. Under post dishonest intention, the first one is criminal misappropriation. Sections 403 to 405 describe the criminal misappropriation. Under criminal misappropriation, the subject matter is movable property. There must be some movable property. The accused gets the movable property from another person. After getting such movable property with the dishonest intention, here this dishonest intention is post dishonest intention. With dishonest intention, that is post dishonest intention, he misappropriates or converts such movable property. He converts for his own use. It is said to be criminal misappropriation or dishonest misappropriation. The subject matter is the movable property. After obtaining the movable property from another person, the accused with post dishonest intention, he misappropriates such movable property or he converts such movable property for his own use, it is known as criminal misappropriation as under section 403 of IPC. The next one under this subcategory is criminal breach of trust. Section 405 to 409 deal with criminal breach of trust. In order to constitute criminal breach of trust, it should fulfill certain ingredients. The key ingredients or the essential ingredients of criminal breach of trust or the subject matter under criminal breach of trust is either movable property or immobile property. The subject matter may be either movable property or immobile property. The immobile property or immobile property must be given by the victim to the accused. Here it is obtained by the accused from the victim. The victim gives away the movable property or immovable property to the accused. After getting such movable or immovable property from the victim, the accused gets the dishonest intention. This is the post-dishonest intention. After obtaining the movable or immovable property with post-dishonest intention, he misappropriates such property or he converts such property for his own use. The difference between criminal misappropriation and criminal breach of trust is just this one. Here the victim in criminal misappropriation gives certain property to the accused. Here accused receives such property not as a trustee. Here the victim is not entrusting any property in misappropriation, in criminal misappropriation. But in criminal breach of trust, the victim entrusts the accused person as his clerk or servant, agent or banker or merchant, carrier, attorney or public servant or broker, etc. The victim gives away his movable or immovable property to his clerk. If the clerk misappropriates such property, if the clerk converts such movable or immovable property for his own use, he sells away such property to any other person. If he mortgages such property without the consent from the owner, without consent from his master, if he uses for his own use, is said to be criminal breach of trust. Here the victim entrusting certain person to looking after such movable or immovable property. The person whose duty is to looking after such property breaks, he goes beyond his duties, he misappropriates such property, he converts such property for his own use, even though he is a clerk or servant or agent or banker or merchant or carrier or attorney or public servant or broker of the owner or the victim. The accused misappropriates such property. That is the only difference between criminal misappropriation and criminal breach of trust. The subject matter under criminal misappropriation is movable property, but the subject matter under criminal breach of trust is movable property or immobile property. This is the first difference. Under criminal misappropriation, the victim does not entrust any person to looking after the property. Simply he gives away the property. He is not entrusting any person. But in criminal misappropriation, the victim entrusts certain person for looking after his movable or immovable property. The entrusted person may be the clerk, servant, agent, banker, merchant, carrier, attorney, or public servant, or broker, etc. Now, part 2 of offences against property is over. Friends, coming to the third one, receiving of stolen property. If the property received by a person is the result of extortion, robbery or dacoity, theft or criminal misappropriation or criminal breach of trust, it is said to be receiving of stolen property. Simply, if a person is possessed with certain property, but such property is removed from the actual owner through extortion, then it is said to be a stolen property. The property possessed by a person by means of extortion, robbery, dacoity, criminal misappropriation, theft or criminal breach of trust is said to be a stolen property. The subject matter under stolen property is the result of either extortion, robbery, dacoity, theft, criminal misappropriation or criminal breach of trust, but not by means of cheating, but not by means of mischief. Under mischief, here the property is, the accused gets nothing. Possessing stolen property is an offence. Receiving of stolen property and allied provisions are explained under sections 410 to 414 of Indian Penal Code. Friends, this is the end of category 3 of offences against property. Coming to category 4, the fraudulent deeds and dispositions of property. Sections 421 to 424 deals with fraudulent deeds and disposition of property. The fraudulent or dishonest intention is common to all offences related to such deeds or dispositions of property. These offences are enumerated from sections 421 to 424. Section 421 deals with dishonest or fraudulent removal or concealment of the property to prevent the distribution among creditors. Removing or concealing the property in order to prevent the distribution among the creditors, in order to deceive the creditors. If a person removes the property or conceals the property, his intention is to prevent the distribution among creditors. It is an offence under section 421. Section 422 describes dishonestly or fraudulently preventing debt being available for creditors. The amount, the payment is available, but the accused prevents the availability of such payment to the creditors. It is described under section 422. Section 423 describes dishonest and fraudulent execution of deed of transfer containing false statement or false consideration. Here, with the dishonest intention or execution, with the dishonest or fraudulent means, the accused executes a deed of transfer containing false statement even though he has no title over the property. Section 424 deals with dishonest or fraudulent removal or concealment of property. Here 421 deals with dishonest or fraudulent removal or concealment to prevent the distribution among the creditors, but section 424 deals with dishonest or fraudulent removal or concealment of property, not to prevent the distribution among the creditors. Friends, this is about the offences against property. This is the overview, the total overview of offences against property.